Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight as we bring you Sounds of the Diaspora, Artist to Artist, conversation with yours truly, Dion Parson. It's an honor for me to introduce you to tonight's guest, someone I've known for a while. We've played together in a number of ensembles and toured the world together. And this gentleman is a master trumpet player, a great educator, arranger, composer, and he's doing amazing things on the jazz scene in New York City. Please join me in welcoming to the Sounds of the Diaspora, Mr. Freddie Hendrix. Hey, Freddie, how you doing?
All right, man. How's it going?
I am well, man. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure
Yes,
to
sir.
be here.
How's things in New Jersey?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Associated Press has the
It's
latest.
getting cold, right?
Oh my God. I can't believe this is happening.
It's all good, bro. It's all good. It's all good. But it's getting cold in New Jersey now, right?
Very, very cold.
Yeah. But things are good. I mean, I know you're getting ready to get on the road for a minute. So thank you again for taking the time out of your schedule to join us. But let's just jump right into this. Freddie Hendrix from Teaneck, New Jersey. I mean, how did you get into music?
That's a great question. I got into music at a very, very young age. Nobody in my family played any instruments, but there was music always played in the house. And I can remember as far back as being 3-4 years old, coming up to listening to 8 tracks at that time. It was 1976, baby. So roughly around 78, 79, 80. He was listening to a lot of 8-track tapes and LPs of great artists like Roberta Flack, Marvin Gaye live at the Palladium, the London Palladium, Al Green, the Blackbirds, Donald Byrd and the Blackbirds, the Commodores, what's the great, the Isley Brothers, who were based here, LTD with Jeffrey Osborne, Jackson 5, Prince, Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life, all that kind of stuff. Came up listening to all of these things. And Barry White, and a lot of those productions, George Benson, Breezin', that was in my parents' record collection. All of those records were heavily orchestrated. So I'm always hearing the live instrumentation, trumpets, trombones, saxophones, strings, and that, I guess, just as a child, I'm just absorbing all this fantastic sound, and not just the sound of raw instruments, but it's coming from really stellar, great artists, all of the great artists of our time. So I think over time, it was only natural that I would want to get into music and explore it more.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. That makes sense. Kind of like my upbringing a little bit, something like similar. But how did you get to the trumpet? How did that happen?
That was a process of elimination. I mean, the first instrument that inspired me mostly was the guitar. Prince was a big influence to me. To hear somebody play guitar like that, I was like, wow, this is amazing. But absorbing information and retaining it, for some reason in my youth, was very difficult for me. Maybe I might have had a form of autism and not realize it. But as time went by, I tried the guitar first. Didn't stay on that very long, maybe a couple of months at the most. Some time goes by. This is like maybe 4th grade. Then I became intrigued by violin. Probably from hearing all the Barry White records and stuff, hearing those strings going in the background.
Yeah.
Tried that instrument. Couldn't play that at all. I completely faked my entire fourth grade concerts. It was just moving the ball, making it look like I knew what I was doing, but I did not do anything at all. I didn't really practice, you know, I wasn't taking it seriously, so I put that down. Fifth grade comes along, and the school at every springtime, the music program in the elementary schools, they always introduce to you the different instruments. And so, you know, of course, you had the woodwind family, you had the string family, and then there was the brass family and the percussion family. But when it got to the brass family, there was a gentleman, his name is David Brown. He's from Omaha, Nebraska. He played the tuba, then he played the euphonium, then he picked up the trombone and played a few notes on that. But when he picked up the trumpet, I was like mesmerized. I was like, wow, what a sound. Because he just played with so much heart and so much feeling. He grabbed me right away. And I was like, I got to try that, you know. So so after they demonstrate all instruments, then you get on a line and you go and see if you're eligible to possibly play the instruments. And the two instruments that stood out the most to me at that time was the alto sax and the trumpet.
Mm-hmm.
When I tried the alto saxophone, they said, I'm not so sure if this might be the best instrument for you. Maybe you might want to try something else. But when I tried the trumpet, and he told me to buzz my lips and try to produce a sound, I got a sound right away. And so they said, maybe this instrument will be good for you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what started me on the trumpet. But again, here I am with this dilemma. I got this instrument, but I'm not taking it seriously. I love music, but I don't know how to get to it.
Right.
So, and then you're young, you're youthful. I joked around. I didn't want to have fun with my friends. I wasn't taking it seriously. But something kept me on this instrument. This one, I didn't let it go.
Right.
So fast forward 2 years later, now I'm in seventh grade. I'm getting towards the end of seventh grade. And all of a sudden, same music director, David Brown, introduces to the band what he called his town-wide jazz band. And this band comprised of students that ranged from people in my age bracket all the way up to like maybe freshman year in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys, the youngest guy in the band was in fourth grade, a trumpet player, and he was playing lead. And this kid had such an amazing sound.
Fourth grade playing lead trumpet. Okay.
He was like a child prodigy. His name was Peter Billick, and who Dave was very familiar with because he was close with this young man's family.
Mm-hmm.
And so knew what this kid can do. And so anyway, they demonstrated 3 numbers. I think one was like Rockin' Robin, another one might have been like a Beatles tune like Hey Jude, and then something else, maybe like Vehicle or something like that. And so I was just blown away from the sound. That all of a sudden, hearing a jazz band play live, the same spiritual feeling that I always had whenever I listened to records at home as a child. So again, getting that same energy. I'm like, what is that, man? I have to get to that. I have to investigate this. So the only way you can get in the jazz band or this townwide jazz band was through audition. And so when I auditioned, I didn't pass the audition because I couldn't read music. I knew notes and spaces, but I didn't understand notation. I didn't understand syncopation and rhythm. Still hadn't connected all of the dots because I wasn't taking it seriously. Joking around, doing enough to get by, but not really studying the instrument. So it didn't devastate me that I didn't get in the band. It fueled me. It fueled me to take it serious.
Right.
At the end of 7th grade, I went back home for the summer, and I started pulling out jazz records that my father had in his record collection, which was not that many. But the ones that we had, he had George Benson Breezin'. He had a what's my man's name? Grover Washington. He had
Mr. Magic or something like that.
CTI called All the King's Men.
Mm-hmm.
Then he had a Louis Armstrong record called Louis and His Angels. And he had one other record, a Joe Newman record. This record is really rare. It's on Roulette, and it's called Joe Newman with Woodwinds. The woodwind section, he has a full 5-piece woodwind section with rhythm section, and the woodwinds more or less kind of function like strings.
Okay.
Like as if it was a string quartet or something. Very interesting. You don't really see that often.
Mm-hmm.
And on that particular record, he doesn't solo. He just plays the melody. All standards, great standards. Star Eyes, Speak Low, that old Devil Moon, Nancy with the Laughing Face. Great tunes. And so I started studying, transcribing naturally, listening to the record, putting it on, listen to it over and over and over until I could play it on the trumpet.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the Louis Armstrong. Learn all of the solos, practice singing like him. Oh, yeah. Doing all of that. And so doing this every day was not only improving my ears, so I'm getting ear training, I'm getting technically more proficient on the horn, and most importantly, it's catching the attention of my 2 next door neighbors. One next door neighbor who's direct adjacent from where we live, that was the King family. The owner's name was Melvin King, and he was an avid jazz fan. He claims that he was friends with Blue Mitchell. He used to hang out. Anyway, he stopped my mother on a Sunday afternoon from her coming home from church, and he says, "Mrs. Hendrix," and she said, "Yeah, Melvin, how's it going?" And he says, "Yeah, is that's your son over there practicing the horn?" And my mom said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, tell him to come over to my house. I want to give him something." So she came in the door. She said, "Fred, go over and see what Mr. King wants. He said he wants to give you something." So I went over to his house and knocked on the door. And at that time, he had a really big German Shepherd, and I was scared to death of this dog. The dog, he opens the door and the dog starts barking, and my heart's about to jump out my chest. And he's like, "Be quiet," and the dog got silent, didn't do nothing. And he was like, "Come on in the house. Come on. He ain't gonna do nothing to you. Come on." I'm scared. The dog, like, that stuff, like something just goes through you. You so scared in your mind.
Right.
What's gonna happen? He was like, "Don't worry, he ain't gonna do nothing. Come on." So go through the kitchen into his living room, and he's playing jazz music. And he says, "Do you like this sound? The sound of the music?" And I said, "Yeah, I like it." He said, "You like it a lot?" And I was like, "Yeah, I like it a lot." He says, "Do you know who that is that's playing?" And I said, "No." I said, "Who is that?" And he says, that's Chet Baker." He said, "Have you heard of Chet Baker?" And I said, "No." And he was like, "But you like the sound?" And I said, "Yeah, man, that sounds great." He says, "All right, I got something for you." So he pulls out a stack of records like this high.
Uh-huh.
And it's Dizzy Gillespie with Charlie Parker and Thelonious Monk, Brilliant Corners, and Sonny Rollins and Clifford Brown.
Wow.
It's the full
like
game.
the real deal.
Textbooks.
Yeah.
He said, "Take this stack of records and copy them." At that time, I was getting big into cassette tapes. So I would take all the records and transfer them to cassette tapes. He said, "When you finish with the stack, bring it back. I give you another stack." So here begins my exploratory of jazz. And so I'm listening to all this stuff, and I'm hearing like confirmation, and I'm like, wow, this stuff is so hip.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't play it. It's too advanced.
Right.
So I'm like, I kept listening to it. Still, I would listen to it and practice singing it. I couldn't play it on the horn, but I constantly kept listening to it, just internalizing
And
it
you're doing all of this without a teacher. You're just like
without a
figuring this out
teacher
on
at
your
that
own.
time.
Wow.
Without a
Okay.
teacher at that time. I did now initially when I first started playing trumpet, I did briefly take lessons, maybe like 2 or 3 lessons with another guy who I'll get to later on in the conversation. His name is David Rogers, who was my second trumpet teacher. Actually, in a sense, really, he was kind of like my first because I actually studied with him first. But he's not the one who introduced the trumpet to me. The person that introduced the trumpet to me was David Brown. And the two of them are very close friends.
Okay.
So in any case, yeah, I mean, my story gets deeper and deeper as we're going to get into it. And so, make a long story short, I didn't take, so I took the lessons in 5th grade, but then I didn't start taking private lessons again until maybe 8th grade, the end of 8th grade. I started studying in the summer with Dave Brown. But to finish my story with the records and internalizing on me, so I kept shedding on Louis Armstrong's because that stuff is difficult too, but it's a little bit more easy to access because he plays more simpler in the sense that, it's more melodic, not so many notes. It's more about the feel and, and getting down to shakes. That was a whole nother thing, but the main thing was that I just tried to the best of my ability, to try to emulate everything that he did and the phrase, the way that he's phrasing on the records. So, and this also caught the attention of my other next door neighbor, who was a former bass player. His name is Jimmy Pettiford, and I came to find out years later that he was a distant cousin of the late, great Oscar Pettiford.
Oscar Pettiford, yeah.
And he actually, when he was playing bass, he actually was the bassist for Monty Alexander.
Okay.
That's how when I met Monty for the first time and I dropped Mr. Pettiford's name, he was like, "What?" He said, "You know Jimmy Pettiford?" I said, "Yeah, he's my next door neighbor." And then we just became instant friends just from that.
Yeah.
So, and that was another story because when Jimmy was playing the bass, they used to play at a club somewhere on the east side called Jilly's.
Jilly's, yep.
So Jimmy Pettiford had three children. He had his oldest daughter, Eve, which was like maybe 2 years older than me. Then he had a son that was disabled. His name was Josh. He was in a wheelchair all his life. And then the third child was his baby daughter, and her name was Jill. He named her after the club that they used to play at. And at that club, Jilly's, was a hangout for Frank Sinatra, because Frank Sinatra had approached Mr. Pettiford about joining his organization, but he knew that Frank was involved with the mob and he didn't want any ties with him. And I think not too long after that is when he stopped playing the bass and chose to pursue a different career. But in any case, so that's how I got into the music. And then from there spawned into me coming up playing in church and taking lessons with Dave Brown in the summer. I had got to a point after I graduated from 8th grade, I took lessons with Dave, my first trumpet teacher. And at the day of my last lesson, I didn't know it was going to be my last lesson, but I went. And, we were playing through some duets together, running some scales, practicing, improvising. And then he stops and he says, I want to experiment with something. He said, turn around, he said, and face the wall. Sit in the chair, but face the wall. And so I turned my chair around and facing the wall. He says, I'm going to play you a series of notes, and I want you to try to play them back to me if you can. And I said, okay. So he would play a note, I would play it back. Play another note, play it back. He's changing the octaves, all kind of stuff. So he said, hey, turn your chair back around. So I turned back around. He says, you have perfect pitch. He said, do you know what perfect pitch is? And I was like, no. And he was like, that means you can hear anything that I play. He was like, wow. He was like, that's pretty deep. And so then he says, all right, now I want to try another experiment. And I said, all right, what are we going to do? He said, we're going to play a duet, but I'm going to test my wife's ears and see if she can tell who's playing the lead. So his wife would always be up in the kitchen washing dishes and stuff. So, and her name was Judy. And he would shout up to Judy. We'd be down in the basement. She'd be upstairs in the kitchen. He said, hey, Judy. And she said, yeah. And he's like, we're going to play a duet. And I want you to tell me if I'm playing the lead or if Freddie's playing the lead. And she said, okay. So we played through the duet and got to the end. And he said, Judy. And she said, yeah. And he was like, did you hear what we did? And she said, yeah. And he said, was I on top or was it Freddie? And she said, I can't tell. And he just starts laughing. He was like, you played your effing ASS off.
Right.
He was like, I have poured all of my essence into you, and there's nothing more I can teach you. He said, so I'm gonna pass you off to somebody else. And that person that he passed me off to was Dave Rogers. And then that's how I started to further my jazz playing, because Dave expertise of jazz playing was out of the Dixieland era, out of the Louis Armstrong era. So that's why I became kind of well versed with that. That's where I developed my sound and in my feel for playing the music. But in terms of like my improvisation, that all came from Dave Rogers. He was the one that planted the seed, teaching me about arpeggiating the chords and all that kind of stuff. The more
and kind of how to identify the chords and
exactly
kind of deal with the theory behind it, the 2/5. That's important.
And even then, even though he's teaching me all of that, it still wasn't all completely registering in my mind, because people don't realize that this music is like scientific. It's a
science,
you know, there's a lot to it. It's not just harmony, it's also rhythm, and the exploration of it all keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. You know, I really believe that we are scientists, doctors, lawyers, all in one, all combined, all together. We have to study the same way that those individuals have to put in that kind of time and dedication in order to understand it. You know, this is not a music that you going to learn in a matter of months or weeks or whatever. It takes years to really digest it and understand it. You have to live it. It's not a state of mind. It's a lifestyle. You know,
you hit it on the head. It's a lifestyle, and there's a lot of people that don't get it. And I'm glad you said that for our audience, because some folks say, I studied jazz. I did, I did this and I did that, and I'm figuring this out. But like you said, when I first got to New York, I remember having a conversation with Arthur Taylor, the drummer. He said the same thing. He said, man, if you're not willing to live this life, don't do it. It's a lifestyle, because it's an ongoing process. You got to, as you wake up every day, you're in it, and you have to explore every day where it's going to take you. And like you said, it's not just the notes; it's the combination of the notes. It's the chords, it's the scale, it's the rhythms, and then the folks you encounter along the way as you share and create music with them. That's part of the process. That's part of the lifestyle.
That was the other thing I was going to say. When things started registering in my mind, it's because of all of the elder statesmen that I've been around through the years, being around them, hanging around them, traveling with them, going different countries. All of a sudden, you might be in Denmark, and we don't speak the language, but yet you have to eat. You have to go out and order food. How are you going to do that? You have to understand the currency. You have to understand. We're constantly in a adapt. We're constantly in this. You have to live in the moment right away.
We're constantly in motion.
Yes.
Constantly in motion. And rhythm is motion, and that's part of the process as well.
And some of the most intelligent, highly intelligent people that I've been around have been musicians. And I really feel that that's how I have grown mentally, physically, spiritually. It's all because of these gentlemen that I've been around.
Mm-hmm.
It's made
Yeah.
me a better person. It's, I'm able to absorb information finally and understand them. It's all coming full circle now.
Oh yeah. And one of the things that I've always appreciated about you, when I see you, you respect and honor the tradition of the music, and I think that has to do with your foundation and the way you was taught. But you also work with a lot of statemen, like traditional bearers of the music as well. So part of your daily process is you're part of that. The lineage that's carrying the music to the next level. Some guys get okay, and I don't know how to phrase this and don't come across saying it the wrong way, but some guys get into this for like the money and the fame and all of that, to be on the front of the magazine. And I
Right.
don't see that about you. Every time I see you, and I'm not saying you're doing great and you're successful, but when I see you, it's about the truth and honesty of the music. You and I have been in some educational situations, and you and I have traveled and be part of that process of sharing the wealth. And I've seen how you presented the music to the folks, whether it's in America or outside America, and there's a level of sincerity and honesty that comes along with it, where you deal with the truth of the music, and that's what I really admire.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, it's real, because some guys just say, "Hey, man, learn this and learn this and learn this," but you go back to the history of it and the lineage, and a lot of people don't have that, and I applaud you for that, man, and that's a great thing. It's part of who you are, like you said.
Absolutely.
It's part
Absolutely.
of your life.
It's a part of all of our lives at the end of
Yeah,
the day, especially if
yeah.
this is what you're trying to do. I mean, like I tell a lot of young students all of the time, that you have to embrace uh, what came before.
Hmm.
Treasuring the past brings forth the future.
Right,
You can't dismiss it, because the minute you dismiss it and you say, well, I don't want to play like this person, or I don't want to sound like this, you're directly uh, disconnecting yourself from the bloodline of the music. You have
right,
to have, I'm not saying you have to sound like Louis Armstrong, but
right,
there are fundamentals
right,
that he laid down that you should have a
right,
concept of it, at least
right.
an understanding of it. Somewhere along the way, that some of the essence of what he left behind should be in your music.
Right. And you're going to need it. You're going to need it at some point. It's like getting on the gig and somebody say, hey, this rhythm is like a la Elvin. If somebody give me a chart and say like Elvin or Tony or Arblay, you automatically know that feeling. But that's coming from studying the history, studying the lineage of the music, and it's important for folks to understand and know that. But man, you have a great foundation. You've shared a lot with us about, and I know there's a lot more, man. There's a lot more you have to say, but for the sake of time, I would love to jump into some of the music that you've shared with us, because I would like an audience to hear the sound behind your story.
Sure.
So the first song you shared with us is a composition entitled "We Are the Jazz Brigade." Tell us about that briefly.
Okay, so that title holds a double meaning. We Are the Jazz Brigade first came out. Um, it started out as an idea that I was working on for a gentleman that was a part of the music community. He wasn't a musician, but he was on the scene. He was he went out to see jazz musicians and hung out at all of the clubs and stuff. One of his hangout spots was a place called St. Nick's Pub,
Mm,
and he was like a hustler. He would sell DVDs and DVDs of jazz icons, such as like Jackie McLean and Lee Morgan, and he would have all these rare footage of cats like that, and sell it to jazz musicians that came through to play. And so because of his love for the music, I wrote something in dedication to him. He's no longer with us, but he had several times have went out of his way to get me on the radio or try to promote me on some local gigs, because he would do like little small time producing here and there and helping musicians out along the way. And so in a dedication to him, I was working on composing a piece in his honor, which was supposed to be called Hard Bop Benny. But I had never completed the tune. I just wrote down some ideas to develop it. So at this time, I started working with a gentleman based out of Poland, saxophone players, and he's also a jazz producer in his own right. His name is Sylvester Ostrowski. Now, this guy, Sylvester, was a longtime fan of Billy Harper, and I would say maybe 2017, he took a trip to New York. Him and his girlfriend, they came to New York. They came to see me performing with Billy Harper at Smoke. And at the end of the set, he approached me and he told me who he was, introduced himself. And he says, I'm a producer, but I also play music. And he said, I would love to work with you someday. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. He was like, I'm really impressed with your playing. And, he said, I very much like your style, and I would love to work with you. He said, do you think you might be interested in wanting to come to Poland to play? And I said, sure. So he put together a special band called the Jazz Brigade. And this band comprised primarily of American musicians. And some of my colleagues like Okan Esset, colleagues of yourself, and Miki Hayama, great Japanese pianist from Kyoto, who now lives in New York, and some other musicians. There's a drummer from Washington, D.C. Used to work with Wallace Rona years ago. His name is Eric Allen. Now, Eric is married to a Polish woman and bear children, and lives out in Poland. So he was already over there, but he already had been working with Sylvester. But Sylvester started this new band, and the first time he brought me over there to the town that he's from, which is called Szczecin, which is in the north of the region. He ended up not only bringing me, but he also had brought Wynton Marsalis in the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. Okay. So when I showed up to meet him at the hotel, I saw a big bus outside, and all of the cats in Jazz at Lincoln Center, because I had used to play with the band. I did about 5 or 6 months with them at one point in time, like maybe the tail end of 2008 to May of 2009. So when they saw me, they was like, yo, Freddie, what you doing all the way over here? Because I wasn't with them. And I said, well, I came over to perform. So they, I think they were pretty shocked about that. But in any case, they did their thing and we did ours. And now began the start of this Jazz Brigade band. So, and at that time, he didn't really have that much material. He had a couple of tunes. See, his concept was he wanted to introduce American musicians. He wanted to introduce American musicians playing jazz music, but also wanted to somehow find a way to incorporate the music of Poland, the folk songs of it, and incorporate that into the jazz, to fuse it together, to bring in his peoples, to let them know, like, look, I'm into jazz music, and I know most of you don't really know much about it, but I think it's a great sound, and it actually could work if you hear the concept. And so when they started hearing the fusion of some of the folklore material of their culture combined with the jazz, it started to grasp their ears, and they're like, wow,
Okay.
So just began the friendship and the start of the band. And so anyway, make a long story short, we needed some material. So he said, do you write? And he said, do you compose music? And I said, yeah. He says, do you think you can write some music for us to play? And I said, sure. So the first tune that I wrote, I went back to that song that I wrote for the gentleman Ben Ureta that I was explaining to you, that was from Harlem, the Hardbop Benny tune, and I called it "We Are the Jazz Brigade." So that's how that tune came to fruition. So it holds two meanings.
Okay.
It was the theme song for us, but it was also a dedication to a fellow brother that was of the community and loved jazz musicians and was always in support of them.
Okay, great. That's a great story, man. Great concept behind the story. Both concepts. Let's check it out. We Are the Jazz Brigade. Sir. Yeah, that was swinging.
Uh,
I hear that. A lot of remnants of some other vibes in there, but really nice, man. Eric sounds great. I haven't seen him in a long time, man.
Thank you. Actually, on that particular track was not Eric. It was Owen Hart. I don't know if
Okay.
you're with him.
Okay.
He's got Jamaican roots.
Yeah.
He's living overseas too. He was over here in New York for a little bit, but then he ended up going over there, and he hasn't been back since. But
Okay.
I mean, just to visit, not living wise. But in any case, yeah, Benny Uretta, the person that I wrote that song dedicated to, he loved the hard bop era. That was like
Right.
his favorite era of all of the eras of jazz, and that's why you hear some of those elements in that song.
Yeah, and it's also remnants of like that St. Nick time also, because that's kind of like what was happening. At that time up in St. Nick's during that time, because I did 8 years on Friday nights with Orchestra Trio with Bill Saxton and Bobby Force.
Yeah,
so, that's when you went into St. Nick's to play, you had to play.
That's right. The
gig would start like 9 o'clock and finish at 4 a.m, man.
You'd be like, jazz music, yeah, man.
Man. Yeah. And it'll be the bus loads, the tour buses full of all the Japanese tourists, and the place would be packed from like 9 o'clock at night till like 4 a.m. It was amazing. It was a thing, man. But great, man. Thank you for sharing that. We are the Jazz Brigade. I'm gonna go check out that whole album because it's really inspiring. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah. The next song that we're gonna play, let's just jump into this, man. The next song is called "The Jersey Cats." Let's hear this and then we'll talk about it after.
Okay.
Yeah, let's check this out. Jersey Cats. I was the Jersey Cats. Who's on that recording?
Oh man, all my homies, all my dearest buddies, especially at that time when we laid that stuff down. That was like my what's the best way to describe that? I was trying to be a journeyman. That's like a craftsman. That's when I was really trying to hone in on my sound, my identity, and cutting my teeth, so to say. So like at that time, a buddy of mine, the producer of the record, and the drummer on the record is Cecil Brooks III.
Okay, so, yeah, CB Third, yeah.
And at that time, he had a club called Cecil's Jazz Club, and so that became like my second home, and I was like always there.
You're right.
I was trying to play with anybody and everybody that came through there, and really trying to develop my sound. You know, I was just hungry for the music and hungry to be out on the scene and to be traveling just like everybody. You know, we all have dreams, and the only way to make dreams happen is to actually get out and do something. You can't expect for your phone to ring all of the time. Sometimes you have to make things happen on your own. And at that time, those were like my formative years is at that club. And so the guys on the record, make a long story short, Abraham Burton on tenor saxophone, Bruce Williams on alto sax, David Gibson on trombone, Brandon McCune on piano, Corcoran Holt on bass, and Cecil Brooks III on drums.
Okay.
And those were the guys that I was playing with almost all the time at that time, whether it was at that club or just around the scene in general, whether it be in New Jersey or Washington, D.C. or Philadelphia or what have you. Those are the guys I was always playing. And so as my debut recording, I wanted to play with the guys that know how I think and how I transfer music. So, you know, they were the best candidates. Actually, the original bass player was supposed to be Dwayne Burno, but Dwayne had got his second kidney transplant 3 days before the record date. So I called Corcoran Holt in desperation, and luckily he was available and he came through with flying colors. But yeah,
beautiful. The Jersey Cats. It's a great recording, man. I enjoyed that, man. Thank you for sharing that with us. The next song you shared with us is one we don't normally hear about waltz. You know, so many cats don't play, and when they play in three is a different thing, but a waltz is a different thing. So you have Whims of a Waltz. Let's check this one out. Let's check out Whims of a Waltz. Yeah, it's a beautiful waltz. I just love a waltz, man. It's like when it's done right.
Yeah, I love waltz too, man. It's got a special vibe to it.
It's so simple, but it's not easy to do. It's
true.
it has to be done right.
Years ago, 3/4 was the 4/4.
Yeah.
It's very popular to play things.
People dance to it.
4/4. Yeah,
people dance to it, and that was the thing. Yeah, but it's not. You get in a gig and cats overplay, and But that's beautiful, beautiful. Whims of a Waltz. And you composed that one for.
It's my dedication to the late great Woody Shaw, who's one of my biggest influences. Obviously, you can hear from me taking a pentatonic approach in my improvisation, and the angular approach, but also a lot of the chords like that sus and minor 11, major 7, flat 5, which is like a Lydian sound. Those are the chords that Woody Shaw liked to explore and play on and stuff. So I incorporated that sound into that tune. It's dedicated to him.
For Woody Shaw. So for our audience that doesn't know, that don't know who Woody Shaw is, he's from New Jersey also, and trumpet player, trumpet extraordinaire, and
North Carolina born, Laurenburg, I believe it's what it was called.
Okay,
but raised in Newark, New Jersey, the new
right. I knew him as a Newark trumpeter, and became very famous. I know Steve Torre played with him for a while, and he did some great stuff. He had a great band. So for audience, that's who Freddie's talking about, paying tribute to the great Woody Shaw. So thank you for that, Whims of a Waltz.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah. So the last song you shared with us is a tune. What is entitled "Sudden Impact." I'm a Clint Eastwood fan, and he has a movie called "Sudden Impact." As soon as I saw that, I was like,
"But it's not because of that, though." I love Clint too, man. But that one,
I'm a huge Clint Eastwood fan for all his movies, and then the Dirty Harry stuff, and all of his Western movies.
He certainly helped inspire the title, that's for sure. Yeah. No. When we, so I got really quickly, I got asked to, everybody did that was a part of this particular band, this Mack Avenue super band. I wasn't a Mack Avenue artist. I was the only one that wasn't a Mack Avenue artist, but I was filling in for the great Sean Jones, trumpeter extraordinaire, who's one of my peers. And he always called him like his first call guy whenever he can't make something. He's like, get Freddie Hendrix. So they called me for that, and so everybody in the band was asked to compose 3 tunes, and that was the one that got chosen for the record date. We rehearsed it one day and recorded the next day. It was like just like that, bam. So here we are playing the Detroit Jazz Festival, and I'm thinking, what can I write that's going to inspire the people? So I tried to come up with something that just quick, bam, hit you over the head, bam, and have them roaring at the end. And I called it Sudden Impact. So that's why you just come in blazing.
Okay.
Hit it hard, get out, get in, get out.
In and out. Okay, let's check it out.
Hit them right away.
Freddie Hendrix, Sudden Impact.
Hendrix, ladies and gentlemen. Sudden impact.
That was McBride. Freddie Hendrix, ladies and gentlemen.
My
Yeah,
man.
man. In and out. I like it. I like it.
Cool.
Sudden impact. Yeah, that's a great composition also.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
very much, man.
Yeah, man.
I really
Freddie,
appreciate you having me on the show, man.
yeah, man. It's just very informative. I learned so much about you that I didn't know, and stuff that some of the stuff I didn't know, you expanded on. So, thanks for sharing. I mean, I know it took us a minute to get to this point. We've been talking about it for months, but
Of course.
and you're getting ready to go back on the road like today or tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I gotta head to Philadelphia tomorrow.
Yeah,
Doing
yeah.
a live recording of Billy Harper music. We're playing music from 2 recordings he's already done, but they were done back in the 70s. And so now with this configuration that he has, they want to relive the music of those 2 recordings, but it'll be a live version with me added and not like Eddie Henderson or a different trumpet player.
Right, right. Well, good luck with all of that, man. And say, give my best to all the cats, man. It's a great band that you're going to be out there with. And excuse me again, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you, my brother.
Same here, man. Same here. That's the beauty of this show, man. Get to, live in the moment and discover new things and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So thank you for joining us, man. And thank you for sharing your stories. We will be in touch because I know you have a lot more to share. So we will definitely have you back in the future, and as we continue this conversation and expand about your educational philosophies and all the great performances you've been doing, and share some more of your music with our audience.
Looking forward to it. Yeah, right. Man. Looking forward to hitting with you too and your band.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All of the above.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Have a great day. Thank you again. That's the great Freddie Hendrix, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Peace and love, everybody. Appreciate y'all.
Yes. Thank you. Again, you've heard it from Freddie, all the great things he's doing, the music that he's writing and composing, and all the wonderful folks he's hitting with. So join us next week as we bring to the sound of the diaspora, the one and only Mr. Donald Harrison from New Orleans, another amazing musician. It's been a pleasure sharing all of this wonderful music and information with you guys. Y'all take care. Talk soon. All the best.